42%. That's the percentage of consumers who say they would pay extra out of their own pocket just to talk to a human being when they need help. Not for a better product, not for a faster delivery, just for the basic privilege of speaking with someone who can actually listen. Let that sit for a second. We have built an entire industry around consumer experience, billions of dollars in technology, platforms, analytics, and nearly half of the customers are telling us they would pay a premium for something that used to be the default. When did talk to a person become a luxury feature? That's what we are unpacking today because I think something fundamental is shifting in how companies design service, and most leaders aren't seeing it clearly. We are not just automating customer experience, we are bifurcating it. We are building a two-tier economy where empathy, patience, and human judgment are being rationed by a customer's ability to pay. And if you're a CX leader, a transformation executive, or anyone who makes decisions about how your company shows up for customers, this should concern you deeply. I'm Hitesh. This is Human Centered Experience. Let's get on with it. So let's start with the numbers because they paint a picture that's hard to ignore. A SurveyMonkey study from late 2025 found that 79% of Americans strongly prefer interacting with a human over an AI agent for customer service. 79%. That's not a niche preference, that's a supermajority. A Kinster report found that 50% of consumers would straight up cancel a service if it became entirely AI driven. Half your customer base gone. Not because of price, not because of product quality, but because you took the humans away. And here's the one that really gets me. A Twilio study showed that 83% of business leaders believe conversational AI can fully replace human agents. Meanwhile, only 8% of consumers agree. 83 versus 8. That is not a disagreement. That is two completely different realities. Executives are sitting in boardrooms looking at deflection rates and cost per ticket dashboards, thinking this is working. And consumers are sitting on the other end of a chatbot loop thinking these people don't care about me anymore. There's a term for this kind of disconnect. I call it the perception gap. And it's dangerous because the people making the decisions and the people living with the consequences are seeing entirely different things. Now, here's where it gets structural because some companies aren't just ignoring the gap, they're monetizing it. Think about airlines. First class was never really about the seat. I mean, sure, the seat's nice, but the real product is a dedicated gate agent who knows your name, the concierge who rebooks you before you even know your flight's been cancelled, the human being who solves a problem with one phone call instead of making you navigate three menus and a chatbot. And this was accelerating. In 2026, Southwest Airlines, the carrier literally built on the idea that flying should be a simple and egalitarian, is considering adding first class for the first time in its nearly 60-year history. Their CEO called it a response to premiumization. That word tells you everything you need to know about where the industry is heading. Banking is even more explicit about it. And one of the banks, you can get a digital robo-advisor for free, but you don't get access to a human advisor until you've got $250,000 invested. At another bank, their special program gives you a dedicated wealth team, lounge access, cultural event passes, but only if you keep 200,000 in combined balances. The architecture is clear. Human attention is expensive, so we'll reserve it for customers who can afford it. Everyone else gets the bot. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not saying these companies are villains. They're responding to real economic pressures. Service is expensive. AI is getting more capable. The math makes sense on a spreadsheet. But when you zoom out, what you see is a customer experience landscape that's splitting into two tiers. A premium tier where you get empathy, proactive outreach, emotional intelligence, white glove recovery. And a standard tier where you get automated triage, scripted flows, and templated apologies. And which tier you land in, that's increasingly determined not by how loyal you are, not by how long you've been a customer, but by how much money You have. Here's the part that really concerns me as someone who spent years leading transformation work. The metrics we use to evaluate CX investments are actively misleading us. Gladly published some fascinating data in their 2026 report. They found that 88% of the customers said AI resolved the issue. Sounds great, right? That's the number that goes on the board deck. That's the number the VP of operations celebrates. But here's the kicker. Only 22% said the experience made them prefer the company. 88% result, 22% loyal. That's a 66-point gap between fixed and felt. Your dashboard says green, your customer feels nothing. I've started calling this the efficiency trap, and I think it maps to a maturity model that most organizations are stuck in. Here's how I see it. Stage one is the cost center. Service is overhead, minimize spend. This is where companies were 20 years ago, and honestly, some still are. Stage two is the efficiency engine. This is where AI enters the picture. The goal is reducing cost per ticket, maximizing deflection, automating everything that can be automated. And this is where most companies stall because the metrics all look good. The dashboards are green. Nobody's asking whether the customer actually felt anything. Stage three is what I call the relationship hub. This is where the shift happens. Companies at this stage measure retention, lifetime value, emotional satisfaction after a service interaction. They use AI to augment human capability, not to replace it. The AI handles the routine so the human can handle the moment that matters. And stage four, the one almost nobody has reached, is trust architecture. This is where human access becomes the product, where the company's competitive advantage isn't its technology stack, it's the quality and accessibility of its people, where the brand earns trust not through marketing, but through how it shows up when something goes wrong. Most companies, they celebrate reaching stage two and think they're done. They're optimizing the engine while the relationship rusts. Here's the kicker that Gartner dropped recently. They're predicting that by 2030, the cost per resolution for generative AI will exceed $3, which is more than many offshore human agents. The assumption that AI is always cheaper is not holding up. When you factor in data infrastructure, model training, edge case complexity, and the cost of getting it wrong, the economics of just replace the humans starts to crack. So here's where I land on this, and it's a position I hold firmly. Although I'd be happy to hear your comments on this. I'm not anti-AI. I've personally led transformation initiatives that automated complex processes and generated hundreds of millions of dollars in cost savings. Technology, thoughtfully applied, makes things better. But there's a difference between using AI to make experiences better and using AI to make experiences cheaper. And right now, too many organizations are doing the latter and calling it the former. The question isn't, should we automate? It's what are we automating for? Are we automating to free up our people to do higher value, more empathetic work? Or are we automating to eliminate our people entirely? And then wondering why customers feel like nobody's home. I come from architecture and industrial design before I came to CX. And in those fields, there's a concept called universal design, the idea that the best design environments work for everyone, not just the privileged few. A well-designed building doesn't put the wheelchair ramp in the back. A well-designed product doesn't hide its best features behind a paywall. Yet, that's exactly what we're building in customer experience. We're putting the ramp in the back, and I think we can do better. So here's my challenge to you this week. Whether you're a CX leader, a transformation executive, or a founder building a product, look at your service architecture. Look at who gets access to a human and who doesn't. Ask yourself, is that split based on what customers need, or is it based on what they're worth to you on a spreadsheet? Because the companies that figure out how to make human connection scalable and accessible at every tier, not just the premium one, those are the companies that will own the next decade of customer loyalty. Human attention used to be the default. It's becoming a luxury. The brands that treat it as a right, not a reward, will define what great experience looks like going forward. This has been Human-Centered Experience. I'm Hitesh. See you next week. Thanks for listening to my podcast. If you found this insightful, please subscribe, share, and check out my recent article on this topic on LinkedIn. As always, feel free to get in touch with me with comments, suggestions, and ideas. I'm Hitesh, and I'll see you next time.